morning, Trumptopia. This is your wake-up call. How many of you are awake yet? That's a trick question. Nobody's awake yet, but more on that later. I am your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Yes, that's a real word, Sally. I can hear your thoughts, I can hear your doubt, I can hear your questioning. Look it up. Okay, you're too lazy to look it up. It means unwilling to change. Inflexible. There's a reason why I use it. Welcome to my podcast, Good Morning Trumptopia. This show is made possible by the public's generous support vis-a-vis Patreon. The easiest way to support your favorite artists and entertainers. Patreon, letting you subscribe to people's shit for $1 a month. Patreon. Does anyone even go to that website? There's a few more I can go, but I don't want to piss them off. Thanks, Patreon. Today is the 4th day of the 8th month of the first year of Trumptopia. Referred to as the 2017th year. I always do that. I fuck that up every time. Because my brain wants to either say 20,000th, which is not correct either. It's not 220 yet. It's only about to be 2020, right? Speaking of which, Trumptopians, am I the only one out there that's excited for the 20s? We're about to live through the 20s again. And it looks like we're lining up to repeat a bunch of the same kind of history. Crazy, out of control stock market that's in a massive bubble. A conservative regime that's inspiring a rebellious, progressive, and liberal counterculture. And that's about it. And endless war. Yeah, that was going on back then. Or was about to, or something. I don't remember. It was all a blur. It was all jazz and cheap free weed and cheap booze. It was... I have a hard time remembering the 20s. And it's only 2017. Whoa. I digress. Let's talk about some of the most interesting things that aren't being talked about in Trumptopia. I find it fascinating that Republicans are having a hard time with the cognitive dissonance that even Republicans want to keep Robert Mueller in office, and that two bipartisan emergency-style legislation thingies, bills or whatever they're calling them these days, have been produced to generate a protective barrier of legalese and ideology around Robert Mueller to prevent the Great Orange leader from firing him or firing someone else so that they'll fire him. This is also Nixonian that I'm kind of gagging in my mouth a little bit. Like I've puked up a little bit about this in my mouth and have had to swallow it back. And mind you, people started using the Nixon reference really early on. I exercised some self-control and some restraint with the Nixon thing and actually said, hey, hold on a second. Well, it's a bit quick to be saying this is just like, okay, this is turning into almost the same thing, except that we're not already in an over covered, over reported on endless war. Or are we? Wow. Let's take a look at a little bit of Trumptopian history that may or may not be clear in people's minds. Now, the great POTUS, Drumpf, as his real name, his immigrant name should be remembered. His family is a family of immigrants from some Eastern Bloc nation that might have some ties to Russia, I think, somewhere. Drumpf, or is it just Germany? Because maybe he's just a Nazi. I don't know. I'm still waiting to see if he tears off his face and goes, Anunnaki! I need to eat your gold! But let's... I digress. The fearless wonder, the comb-over of America, is angry at his generals because they have not solved the Afghanistan problem in the 6 months since he took office. And I was already talking about this before, and I don't want to... let's let that episode stand in terms of will he become a military dictator. Because I think the question, I played out the logic there just to engage you, who anyone out there who's never considered that America just may be not the good guy. And that I guess we need a bad guy to step up and look like a bad guy to reveal to ourselves that we are indeed the citizens of, a pretty awful country. He's mad at them about Afghanistan, which has so many layers of irony. And I'm reminded of the moment where he said about Putin and his brutality. What, did you think we're so innocent? How do those two moments connect? He's playing lip service, and by that I mean he's acting out a part a bit. He might be actually a little bit frustrated personally, but they also set up this set of scenarios, I think, those who select the president, which is not us, the people. It is not the electoral college. You know who selects the president? The murky and obscure people who choose who's allowed to run. Because nobody is allowed to run that isn't vetted and approved and pre-screened and pre-inculcated in plausible deniability worth of crazy money laundering. But I digress. Back to Afghanistan. It is one of... I think that I'm making a distinction that is often lost in the news, because the news, in mainstream news, refuses to, but in the tiniest blip of acknowledgement, recognize, as I mentioned in a previous episode of breaking news, I think. I'm getting them all blurred together. I apologize, you guys. I'm super busy with other things besides these podcasts, so sometimes, I totally recorded, to interject on myself, I totally recorded an episode of Cannabis Talk and filed it under unauthorized and unauthorized and explicit readings, which was a bummer because I was just doing an episode of Cannabis Talk for shits and giggles because I was up late. I didn't really have much to say, and it just sort of I should have kept it. I deleted it, but I digress. Korean War does not... I know, what? Korean War? What's he talking about? He was talking about Afghanistan. The Korean War never ended. Now, some people realize this. It's kind of a nerd history... you're wandering into nerd history territory here. But that's why we have history nerds. Thank God. God bless the history nerds, for they remember more than most of us about shit we should understand better. The Korean War never ended. We never stood down from that, which is why we have so many soldiers in South Korea. I have physically been to the Korean Peninsula. I obviously have not been to North Korea. Don't want to be accused of that. But I have had the honor and the pleasure of traveling to South Korea as a performer, as a stage talent in a show that garnered quite a bit of love and attention and admiration from the Korean people. And it was painfully evident that there was a lot of American influence and Americans. There's a lot of America deep up in South Korea. And for those who don't remember, it's because we had a long, horrible, bloody war that many of us here at home protested against quite adamantly, because it was endless. It was endless and mindless and bloody. And guess what? It never really ended. We aren't shooting at each other over the demilitarized zone. We've basically been standing at, the knife's edge of reopening that as an active war of theater, but it never shut down. So it never got shut down. It never got signed off as turned off. And what's my point? We have been, as I've mentioned before, in endless war. If you're younger than me, this country has been in endless war your entire life, and you've been misled to not really realize that. Maybe you're sharp, maybe you're clever, maybe you're a truther, maybe you're a flat earther, and you've already tackled the military-industrial complex somehow in your steps of realization. But let me tell you something. Anybody out there that's calling themselves woke or awake, I really love the ones that say, I'm woke as fuck. And I'm not saying that because of any particular ethnic identity that might seem to be aligned with that. But, I see white folk. I see white peeps being all, reappropriatedly urban, not white in their style and in their approach, patting themselves on the back all over Facebook for being woke as fuck. Let me break some news to you. Did I already do this? Am I repeating myself? I think I am. I think maybe it's because I always have to come back to this. Obama is to date the United States' longest wartime president. In other words, during his tenure, despite having been handed the Nobel Peace Prize, there was more war per day, per week, per month, per quarter, per year of his tenure in the White House than any other president in history. So go ahead and explain to me again about what a wonderful president he was and how he really fought for the people and how he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm not trying to turn this episode into an Obama-hating episode. That's never my point. My point is, Obama haters, wake up. Obama lovers, wake up. Y'all both being manipulated. And maybe, by extension, my logic here, extension of logic is, hey, Trump supporters, wake the fuck up. Hey, Trump haters, wake the fuck up. Both sides are being manipulated. That's the game. That's what politics is. Always has been. For a really long time. Do you think war profiteering is new, my friends? War profiteering was old hat by the time we built the Tower of Babel. Go ahead and look up when the Tower of Babel was built. I don't have the number sitting in front of me. So guess what? It's a really old addiction. It's a really old institutional and worldwide addiction. Now, I don't say this to be depressing or to sound like there's no hope. I put my neck out there every day with the thin veneer of protection of pretending that I have a nom de plume, but I'm not a hacker. My identity's probably already been hacked and rejected for selling because I'm worth nothing. And I'm not inviting identity hackers, by the way. What I'm putting out there is that, like, if the war profiteers, clearly, I'm digging myself a hole here. I'm putting myself out there because this is dangerous stuff to talk about. And I'm not trying to sound dramatic or self-aggrandizing. Plenty of people out there speak about this stuff or other stuff and are putting themselves at far greater risk. Think about all the opposition politicians in Russia. I mean, all you got to do is watch a little bit of some documentary about Russian politics, and you go, "Oh wow," you know. And think about the opposition forces in any country where their democracy is and has been for the last several years, decades even, been fucked with and manipulated and hijacked. When there's an old journalist like satire cartoon floating around the internet as meme. Ask who you cannot criticize, and you will discover who the oppressor is. I think that was close to the truth in its wording. I think that there's a few steps missing. In large part, as you may recall, I've rambled at in some other segment, in some other show, that those who are truly in power have enough money to make sure that they never get leaked, that they never get found out, that they hide behind so many proxies and so many puppets that we won't know who they are. So anybody out there proud and patting themselves on the back and hating on others for not knowing who the Rothschilds are, guess what? You fell for one of their ego traps. This whole game is a game of ego traps, folks. And the fact that we now live in the era of Trump, the son of immigrants who hates immigrants, I mean, that's just perfect. Because that's America, right? All wrapped up in a nutshell. It's a country established by illegal immigrants who killed off a nation of locals and grew up to hate immigrants. This shining city on a hill, no disrespect, may once have been or tried to be and may have transitioned its own hypocrisy briefly to be the best that it could be. But honestly, all states are ideological constructs designed to enslave the people and control them. That's what it means to be governed, especially when you are governed by ideologues. What are we to do, folks? What are we to do? Guess what? Currently, we're falling for the very traps that the oppressors have laid out. We are dividing ourselves even further. I talk about it constantly. Just the other day, I saw on Facebook, and I don't need to pick on them by name. They know if they're my friends on Facebook and they're listening to the podcast, which currently is not much of a crossover. Then I pull out a quote, you'll know who you are, and I don't do it to upset you or to offend you, but I'm referencing the material being discussed. So, a somewhat aggressive Facebook friend, who I kind of admire on many points, was complaining and spewing a bit of hate at flat earthers for co-opting the 9/11 truther movement. And lo and behold, in the comments section, this guy's got a lot of followers. I'm maxed out at 5,000, and I'm still surprised at how little debate and discussion goes on in my posts. But someone pointed out that I'm posting from such a position of out of the box and from way out beyond left field that most are like, "Oh, wait, what?" I don't know, but I digress. They were discussing this flat Earth hijacking of the truther movement, and then of course like I was saying, lo and behold, in their comment section, what do we see? We see varying flavors of trutherism being represented vis-a-vis the statement of axioms that do nothing more than divide the truther movement, and an attempt to say, well, this version of trutherism is the most righteous. And I called them out. I have this saved somewhere. Let me see if I can remember to, I don't need to do that. I really, 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 by the way, folks, if you're local, I need some interns, and I need some co-hosts, and I need some social media army to make this thing a movement. Not because I think I'm special or because I think I've got a better ideology than others, but rather I think that the universe is calling us all to start working to make art that doesn't lecture you about a new ideology, but rather one that invigorates and invites and seduces audiences to question all of their existing ideology. Right? That's what I'm about. And my friends, that takes a lot of effort. Just getting this podcast off the ground twice a week is eating up all of my free time to the point where I'm having difficulty doing the dishes and, keeping up with my laundry. Now, you'll laugh. Anybody who knows me in person will laugh because I've never been really great at doing those things in the first place. But now I really, really, truly, genuinely have even less time for it. Here we go. So, I think I saved this in my savey thing. Maybe I didn't. But I saved another one that was very similar to it, which I'm going to read from in just a second. Okay. So, I just posted on the one I'm referring to something about my amazement that, lo and behold, conspiracy theorists are arguing, are fighting amongst themselves and arguing about which conspiracy theory is the most righteous. And someone replied, hey, what kind of dismissive definition for conspiracy theory do you have? Or are you clinging to? And I said, no, I have no definition for conspiracy theorists. A lot of you are in this cluster here, in this comment cluster, are self-identified conspiracy theorists because you tout conspiracy theory. The thing is, those of you who know me, I try to feature the central bit to all ideological constructs, and that's the self-righteousness clause. Us, we, this group, this ideology, this belief construct, this dogma is righteous, and all the rest are flawed and incorrect. You might also recognize it as the us versus them contingency. Like, all ideology pits us versus them. It forces us. We are one collective us on the planet. But ideas, whether they be Republicans versus Democrats, or Muslim versus Jew, or Christian versus Muslim and versus Jew, or white versus black. I'm a broken record. I've already rambled about this so many times on the show. Let's move on. These items are for news, breaking news, and I gotta respect my own boundaries that way. Who's looking forward to watching Fareed Zakaria's Why Trump Won? Why do I call out mainstream media sometimes and applaud it? Because they're just people too, and they really are, while as hijacked as any other cultural institution, they really are also as much a mixed effort of trying to do the best of their ability and to the best of their understanding. I explained it in depth in another episode, and I seem to be falling into a lot of redundancies in this episode, so I'm going to try to just leave that there. Fareed Zakaria is one of those people on TV that I genuinely believe, that and Dr. Sanjay Gupta, I really genuinely believe that these guys are somehow managing to escape the negative influences of the overall general media corruption. Right? We don't need to run down that rabbit hole. Media is all owned by the same corporations, etc., etc., etc. right? But corporations are not people, Mitt Romney. And I can hear you bitching and moaning about it. I hear your thoughts, Mitt Romney. What are you doing listening to this podcast? I'm kidding. I digress. I don't think Mitt Romney's... That's just a joke. That's just a bit that I do. I really doubt Mitt Romney is listening to my podcast. But if he is, corporations are not people. And corporations do not deserve rights. Also, and simultaneously, corporations indeed contain groups of, for lack of a better term, enslaved people. They are enslaved by their corporate slave masters. So, this hating the journalists, if you're falling for that, if you're hating on journalists, if you think they're the worst people in the world, if you really have bought the brainwashing that he's been spewing out, that our dear leader, the best guy, who's the only guy that can fix our problems, he's spewing out all the same us versus them rhetoric that you were angry about others spewing. He's pitted you against the media, and which is ironic because he needs the media. He leverages the media. He knows how to play the media. And deep down, I don't think that any of the media hate from Trump himself is anything more than divide and conquer. Make them hate themselves and each other. His base, his supporters, his fans. What do you spend what do they spend? I'm asking you, should any of you be listening? I'm hoping that Good Morning Trumptopia actually attracts Trump fans and then immediately engages them to like a question, but it might not. I might need to tone down my own style. How much of my shit is rhetoric? I don't know. I feel that there's rhetoric and then there's like an argument for something beyond rhetoric. I'll tell you this. I'm not consciously and on purposefully lying to you, dear audience, whether you're a Trump fan or not, whether you're a Clinton fan or not. I'm probably offending both Democrats and Republicans equally if they're really clinging to that statism, that bipartisan statism that they love so much. But statism is the most dangerous religion in the world. That meme's out there, it is floating around, and I endorse it, and I know it to be describing an accurate thing. How many more layers of lies will it take? Layers of lies from the president. And it's a murky thing because one of the most I've said it before, I'll say it again, one of the most amazing things about him is that he mixes the truth in with his bullshit really well. Alright, I feel like I'm being exceptionally redundant and no one wants to listen to me repeat myself. My fellow Trumptopians, I reach out to you because we are all Trumptopians now. We are all living through this together. My urgent, passionate calling is to beg you all to set aside the hate speech. Put down the divisive thinking. Stop pointing the fingers at those Americans or those Trumptopians or those politicians versus those politicians. We are all complicit. We are all complicit. Slowly but surely, everyone on all sides of the ideological spectrum, everyone's waking up to that. Parties don't matter. Ideologies are not our friends. It is mental slavery. Politics sucks, to quote a friend of mine from Facebook, who only just came to that after having been a very passionate political grassroots strategist for a hot second. Politics sucks because it's designed that way to suck, my dear. Now, we can get caught up in the anger of politics sucking. We can fall for the divisive rhetoric and waste our time hating the rednecks, or hating the transgendered, or hating the immigrants, or hating the people who hate the immigrants, or hating the Muslims who live here, or hating the Islamophobes. See my point? My point is the system of oppression wants you living in one of three states: fear, hate, or violence. And isn't it a coincidence? Isn't it a fascinating coincidence that they are all interconnected? That fear helps engender, or as Yoda put it, leads to hate, and that hate helps produce or causes the creation of, or leads to violence. Trump is a charlatan, always has been. Those of us who knew it from beforehand, we're tired of trying to explain it to you, to those of you who love him and are blind faith followers. And what we're hoping now is that this madness gets so overwhelmingly strong and undeniably crazy that even the most hardcore of fans will finally break down, like they did with Nixon. Nixon went beyond the pale and did, the set. And it's amazing. Trump has been clever. He's been so cannonball as to invoke comparisons to Nixon, and yet has not crossed the same kinds of lines as Nixon has. For those who don't know, there's some really fascinating documentaries about Nixon floating around on all the media right now. I think even Fox did a little short recap of Nixon's shit. But quite frankly, I know we hate the media. I know we're opposed to the mainstream media. But if you look at CNN's documentary series, the 60s and 70s, there's one episode there that's all Nixon. That's really great. And then there's also All the President's Men Revisited. I know. Any of my listeners out there who are anti-media, don't forget, I'm anti-media too. I'm not blindly suckered in by their bullshit. But I got to give them credit where credit's due. Sometimes they produce things that are about as good, as close, as good as you can get and as close to the historical truth as you can for this instant media satisfaction generation. And it can be considered valid sources, despite the fact that, yes, they are on an agenda. I get it. I'm not blind to that. But like I keep saying, they are also human. Just like any church. People freak out when I post one of my favorite meme miniseries, which opens with the very stark and abrupt meme: Christianity has been hijacked, Islam has been hijacked, Judaism has been hijacked. All three major religions have been hijacked by the same corporate war profiteers. Full stop. And have been for a long time. If you are curious as to why I think so, tune in to some of my previous episodes if you're new. If you're a steady listener and you are caught up and you're here at the forefront and you're going, hey dude, you're getting a little stale, kind of beating the same horse, now is the time to start submitting your questions, my friends. I see the numbers on my platforms, by the way, ever so gently creeping up, almost day to day, for which I've been trying to take the time to say a lot of thank yous. But looking at the numbers for just Good Morning Trumptopia, it's had 17 live plays on Sprecher and 45 downloads. I don't know how that breaks out because I don't get better analytics than this because I'm not paying for the more sophisticated account. I don't have the revenue stream yet, but I'm saving space and asking the universe to bring me some patrons. But I digress. What's my point here? yeah, like this show is meant to be so much more interactive and audience participatory than it is achieving yet. And of course, you know, that's understandable and forgivable because literally only a handful of people are checking it out. And I don't know what the trends are, whether people are staying and coming back to listen more, or they're tuning in going, this guy's up on the same beat. I've heard what he's got to say, and aren't. Who knows? But if you've been listening along, and you've got questions, you've got disagreements, you've got flaws and chinks in my armor to point out, bring it. If you come at me with hate, trust that I'm going to come at you with like some forgiving, compassionate, healing love, and it's going to be a weird conversation. But if you come at me with some intellectual honesty, then we're going to have a really fascinating discussion. And more importantly, folks, we're going to bring this discussion to more and more people, because this level of investigation is what we're not allowed to do. Isn't it fascinating that all of the Western world generally disregards mystic thinking as New Age crazy woo-woo, and yet all evidence indicates that Jesus Christ himself, the supposed like keystone or anchor of all of Western civilization, because Western civilization, while very secular now and very agnostic and or atheist now, it's still sort of the bastard child of Catholic Christianity. Ugh, that's a subject for a whole nother episode. If you're new and you're wondering what the fuck is going on, I strongly encourage you to visit my other podcast shows and dig deep. You might want to launch, if you're already kind of spiritual minded or intrigued by analysis of religion, you might want to start with unsolicited and explicit readings. If you're, it's 11/11. Happy 11/11, everybody. If you're interested in my political criticism and analysis, then dig deep into both Good Morning Trumptopia and News Breaking News. If you just want to hear more about the spiritual stuff and less about the political stuff, you can stick with Almost Daily Zencast and meditations. If you're confused and intrigued by all of it so far, keep listening and keep digging into all the different segments as they expand. And a quick programming note. There's 2 miniseries and a third one coming out that I'm going to sort of completely artificially label as part of season 2. And I think I explained this in another episode. It's just easier for me to keep track of because I put this together in such a limited amount of time anyways, week to week, and I'm always in such a rush that I'm finding ways to streamline the mundane production process stuff. So forgive me for that, you guys. But here's something to look forward to. Any of the new series, which I haven't even made new recordings of yet, but any of the new series that do sort of skip season 1, I'm gonna backfill a season 1 a little bit later on when I have more downtime, because I generally do. My schedule tends to fluctuate, interestingly, and I'll have nice, deep sessions of free time, for a couple of weeks at a time. And that's sort of my plan. For right now, I'm wicked busy, and I got to get going. This was supposed to be a less than 30-minute episode, and it's going the full 45. Might as well wrap it up. What is Good Morning? I'm going to add some nuggets here. I thought I was getting redundant, but I'm going to add some new shit. What is Good Morning Trumptopia and this whole collection of podcast projects really about? My agenda is threefold, folks. And I think an astute listener, a keen audience member that has been listening to all of it might be getting a pretty broad sense of it. In the long term, in the big picture scale, one of my objectives is to leave a record of my observations of this insanity that we're living through, and B, a message from Mother Earth woven into all this satire and social criticism and not quite as funny as it can be yet discussion, because I'm lacking my correct collaborators. Once I've got the two other people sitting around this table with me, this show is gonna like blow up and go crazy, because I work way better with others, in terms of interesting conversation. When I get myself into repetitive spirals when I'm just talking off the cuff of myself. But so one of the goals, one of the objectives, is to leave a record for future anthropologists of the digital world, which more than likely will be either aided by or literally themselves be robots, artificial intelligences. Which brings me to a kind of connective tissue thought teaser for the next episode of News Breaking News. Automotive self-driving automation it's not only a thing that's on its way. It's like poking its head out the baby maker. It's being born right now, and I got a lot to talk about it. So tune into the next Breaking News, where we talk about the Tesla Model 3 and also the Hyperloop, and also lab coat liberals running for office, and a few other things that I don't have notes for in front of me right now. So stay tuned for that. And back to my methodology, my madness. There is a method to this madness, folks. And I know that there's a severe madness to this method. So for those of you who are like sticking through it and hanging tough and listening to all these, kudos to you. So the other components. So I'm trying to leave a record for any future archaeologists, human or robotic, because that's bound to happen. It's going to happen, folks. It's coming. And also, I'm trying to reach all those suffering souls who are living in the like no man's land of not believing in anything, and not having a spirituality, but also not sitting comfortably with the agnosticism or with the atheism or with the rejected Catholicism or rejected whatever they rejected. They now have nothing. As I was talking about in an episode of what's it called? Damn it. It's like the two words are, I haven't gotten used to the words, the names of the two new segments. Unadulterated and explicit? No. Unrated, unsolicited, unauthorized. As I spoke about it, unauthorized and explicit readings the other day, we are spiritual animals. Not only do I feel that way based on a lifetime of observation and research into our distant past, but so do a few other folks. So I'm trying to reach those who are sort of living in that no man's zone, no person zone, no spirit zone, and wondering why they feel like shit. And maybe they think that vegetarianism is the answer. Maybe they think libertarianism is the answer. And I'm here to say, hey guys, the answer is getting rid of all the isms. So hang tight. Trumpism is another ism we got to get rid of. Thanks for listening. If you radically disagree with me, let me know. If you radically agree with me, let others know. If you want to be a featured commentator, contributor, interviewee, commentator, I already said that. If you want to collaborate, let me know. Emails in all my profiles, theincorrigible Mr. Zeppo @gmail.com. Find me, follow me, share me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Greenspace, and what other social medias you know about. Peace, love, and grooviness be with you, folks. Stay tuned for more.